I'm absolutely thrilled to have M. Villanueva here with us today, learning designer at Canva. So I will hand it over to you, M.
Hello. Thank you, Jess. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really excited to do this workshop with you guys. So I am M. Villanueva from Canva, Manila. So I am presenting to you from my living room in Manila, Philippines. And I work as a learning designer for Canva. So I help create learning programs and facilitate some learning sessions for our Canvanauts. And I'm really happy to share this space with you guys because it's some pretty exciting stuff. I'm very passionate about our topic for today. And so let's dive right in. Before, of course, I talk about, the tips and tricks that I will share with you. Let's just do a little bit of backtrack. Okay. So I'd like to backtrack my journey and backtrack with me. Okay. I promise it will be simple, short, sweet, and it will all make sense. Okay. I graduated from the University of the Philippines in 2010, so some years ago, 11, with a degree in linguistics. Okay, not long after, I think just 6 months, I was hired as a voice and accent trainer for IBM Dash Philippines. And as a matter of fact, I wear this with a proud badge. I was hired as the youngest trainer for IBM Philippines at the age of 20. Right? So I know I still look 20, but I'm no longer there, way past that. And I mean, I wish I could tell you that it was a really great story that, oh man, I was wowing everybody and I was so good at what I do. I'd love to be able to tell you that, but that wasn't really the case. Our entire training team, everybody was so good, like they've been doing it for years and years. And I was just there, just trying to find my way, find my space. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was all right, of course. I mean, they wouldn't hire me if I wasn't all right. But my strength lies in the technical background. So I mentioned I finished BA linguistics. And so I really know phonetics, phonology, pronunciation at the back of my mind. Really, I know it off the top of my head. So technical expertise, check, right? But training, facilitation, presenting, I have bored people to death, really. I've received feedback that I sounded very matter-of-factly, very data-driven, like plain, straightforward, and boring. And I look at the other trainers and I could hear from the other room that they were all laughing. Everybody's having fun. Their trainees love them. And I thought to myself that, wow, what are they doing differently? I think I want to learn to be like that. Right. And so I did, I really worked hard. I really tried to learn from books, from videos. Of course, trial and error is always the best, practicing, putting it into application, everything that I've learned. And fast forward to now, I think I'm doing pretty all right, way far from that boring, matter-of-factly person who was just delivering data, facts, numbers, ideas, and concepts without really connecting with the participants or the learners. I actually found a funny video on the internet that I would like to share with you. And this talks about worst presentations ever, right? And as we watch it, kind of like pinpoint the parts where you can relate, where you can say, been there, been that, and just, have a laugh at it. All right, here we go.
Quadruple checking notes as people file in, getting the computer ready, and asking everyone to take a seat. Pretending to click something on the computer to cover up the fact that I don't know what to do with myself.
Arriving just in time.
Wrapping up our conversation about a popular TV show we watched last night.
Disdain for popular TV show.
Mediocre icebreaker joke that doesn't quite land. Attempt to redeem myself by making fun of that guy.
Laughing at that guy.
Laughing because he's laughing and I like him.
Not laughing, and now checking out for the rest of the session.
Title, dramatic pause, of my presentation.
Question about how long this session will last?
Annoyed, vague response.
Exaggerated eye roll.
Poignant quote from unknown philosopher to kick off presentation in dramatic fashion. Juvenile slide transition to spice things up. Reading a long paragraph exactly as it appears on the PowerPoint slide about a shocking statistic I just learned about, followed by all kinds of vague lingo that no one will remember 2 seconds from now, capped off by 3 bullet points. So. Proudly pause to make sure everyone notices my awesome clip art choice. Out of date pop culture reference.
Correction about pop culture reference.
Defending pop culture reference by citing social networking site no one uses.
Audible sigh to make sure everyone knows this is a complete waste of my time.
Serious and somewhat over the top reminder about how important this information is. Unexpected technical difficulty. Embarrassed, people can see my desktop background.
Snide remark about how Macs are better than PCs.
Desperate plea for IT guy.
Fixing the problem with an annoyed look on my face so that everyone knows how good at computers I am.
Unfunny video I'm really proud of having created myself.
Texting my friend in a way that I think is discreet.
Clearly aware of the texting. Prefacing a preface of a preface so that no one really understands the point that I'm prefacing. And now, going through a long list of facts, one by one by one. Asking if anyone has any questions. Reminding everyone there are no bad questions. Hoping if I wait long enough, someone will finally have a question. Concluding by restating the title of my presentation and dismissing everyone. Excited that someone came back for a follow-up conversation.
Grabbing pen that I accidentally left.
Okay, how many of you guys were able to relate to that video? Been there, done that? I was definitely the one with when he was just clicking and looking and reading and clicking and looking. No connection whatsoever, right? So we've all been there, you know, at one point in our lives. We have delivered some pretty cringe-worthy presentations, right? In any version, like awful slides, not looking at our participants, reading from the notes, not even knowing what we're presenting. So many versions of that, right? And on the flip side of that, I would like to ask, because of course we all know what a bad presentation looks like, I would like to ask, who is the best speaker that you know, right? So let's go to the flip side of things. So we know what bad is. Now, who is the best speaker that you know? If you have a name. So one of my favorite speakers, so I told you that I did like a researching phase of in my trainer life because I wanted to be good. I really wanted to be able to deliver with confidence. So in my quest to look for a model, I stumbled upon Brene Brown. Do you guys know Brene Brown? Yeah, she is good. I love her very much, right? So if you're not familiar with Brene Brown, she is an award-winning author. She's a podcast host. She's a TED speaker. She's really great. But her character, very soft, but her stories are amazing, right? The first time I have watched Brene Brown was, 9 years ago when I was still, trying to be better at talking to people or talking in front of people. And when I saw her speak, I really got inspired because her stories are, the concepts are vague, the ideas are, very kumbaya, you know what I mean? Like very intangible, right? But she relates to her audience as if, they're able to experience it as well. So let me share a quick video of her, just so you have an idea, and I'll reference to this video from time to time.
So I get out my laptop and I do a search for who was president in the United States during the Downton Abbey era. Have you ever done that? Like you're numbing with TV or a movie, and so when it's over, you just like stay in that space by like learning more about the actors and what's going on. I've been doing this long enough to know this is like, you're laughing with me, not at me. So I put it in, and Theodore Roosevelt comes up, and a quote comes up. And I read it, and this is what it says. It's a quote from a speech that he gave in the early 1900s at the Sorbonne, and a lot of people call it the Man in the Arena speech. And this is the passage that changes my life. It's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done it better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat and dust, who, at the best, in the end, knows the triumph of high achievement, and who, at worst, if he fails daring greatly. So the moment that I read that, I closed my laptop, and this is what shifted in me. 3 huge things. First, I've spent the last 12 years studying vulnerability, and that quote was everything I know about vulnerability. It is not about winning, it's not about losing, it's about showing up and being seen. The second thing, this is who I want to be. I want to create. I want to make things that didn't exist before I touched them. I want to show up and be seen in my work and in my life. And if you're going to show up and be seen, there is only one guarantee, and that is you will get your ass kicked. That is the guarantee. That's the only certainty you have. If you're going to go in the arena and spend any time in there whatsoever, especially if you've committed to creating in your life, you will get your ass kicked. So you have to decide at that moment, I think for all of us, if courage is a value that we hold, this is a consequence. You can't avoid it. The third thing, which really set me free, and I think Steve, my husband, would argue has made me somewhat dangerous, is kind of a new philosophy about criticism, which is this. If you're not in the arena also getting your ass kicked, I'm not interested in your feedback. Period. That's it. If you have constructive information, feedback to give me, I want it. And I'm an academic. I'm hardwired for wrestling around with stuff like that. If you say, hey, you forgot all this literature, or hey, you should have done this, or terrible sentence construction over here, like, let's do it. I love that. But if you're in the cheap seats, not putting yourself on the line, and just talking about how I could do it better, I'm in no way interested in your feedback.
All right, so that's just a short clip. This is available on YouTube anyway, so if you want to watch the full thing, you can go ahead and do that. Now, what I'd like to ask is, what did you notice about her? Did you see why I like her? I mean, what do you think? Did you also catch that as she was delivering her 3 points, she's wrapping it in the story, right? So I mentioned earlier that the concepts that she's trying to deliver can be foreign to some people, like whatever is vulnerability, whatever is courage or feedback, right? But because she wraps them in a sort of really nice way, it's very easy to receive, right? So my question for everybody is, can we ever be like them? Who here wants to be like them? Yeah, for sure, right? I really wanted to be able to talk like her, command yourself in your presentations like her, very calm, but also, you know that you have everybody's attention, right? So today, I don't promise that we're going to be Brene Brown's or Tony Robbins or Steve Harvey's today, but it is my hope that we take one step towards the right path, right? Which is to elevate your presentations through storytelling, right? It can be any kind of presentation, a corporate one, presentations for your school, pitching, your products or whatever. I'd like to show you why storytelling is the key or the magic to presentations, all right? And I would also share with you the importance of storytelling, and it is my hope that you gain more confidence in delivering your presentations through storytelling. And of course, I know that Jess has mentioned if you have an upcoming presentation, hopefully you can apply the tips that you will learn from this session. Okay. In this particular session, what I would like to highlight is the importance of storytelling or crafting a great story within your presentation. Okay, what do we mean when we say storytelling? Is it really just, a narrative that you take them or that you share with your participants? Is it all about just that? Not really. The art of storytelling is really about having the ability to connect and inspire your participants or your learners or the people in whoever, right? To change their mind and to take action by presenting a narrative that they can relate to, right? And you would want them to see themselves as part of that story or even as the center of attention. Like it is about them, right? So in essence, storytelling is very important because you would want them on board with you in your ideas. And they need to see themselves as a center of those ideas, right? Those skills that you want to share with them, right? It's a skill that allows you to communicate with ease, okay? So 3 things that you really would like to utilize with, storytelling: to inspire, to connect, and to relate, right? Did you also know that 55% of people say that a great story is primarily what holds their focus, right? If you hear a great story at the beginning, chances are you're gonna really want to know more, right? And also people are 22 times more likely to remember a fact when it is wrapped in a story. There is actually a science to storytelling, okay, a neuroscience of storytelling, how your brain responds to storytelling. So number 1 is neural coupling, right? So this is when your brain is activated as you listen to the speaker, okay? You couple the experience, their own ideas, and then you find a similar idea that you have in your mind. You listen to their experience, and then you find a similar experience that you have in your mind, right? Mirroring also is reflected, right? It is finding that common ground with this speaker, right? Like if they talk about a certain restaurant and you're like, oh, I've been there, I know that place. If I talk about Brene Brown, oh, I've seen her, I love her, right? And dopamine is also triggered. A lot of brain chemicals are triggered because it is said that dopamine is released, that your happy hormones, your brain biochemistry, they're enhanced with emotionally charged event. So making it easier for your participants to remember details and concepts and ideas with great accuracy. And of course, there's cortex activity where, it really engages everything. So it makes you want to write something, take down notes. It makes you want to look up the video that I've shared, something like that, right? So a lot of activation in the brain when you are doing storytelling. As to any story, we have what we call elements of the story, right? This is what makes your story, your presentation, compelling, relatable. So these are the elements that we're going to talk about. The first one is characters, okay? A good story is one that you can identify with. Have you ever been a participant in a presentation and you just couldn't relate? Like the jokes don't land, and when somebody gives a joke, you look like this, like, huh? You resort to an awkward laugh because you're just, what? Right? Or were you ever a presenter and you shared a joke and nobody laughed and all you could do was like throw in another punchline and like, haha. And or you just heard crickets in the room because nobody laughed at you, right? It is important that you know who you're talking to, identifying your characters, right? Identifying who your learners are, who your attendees will be, who are you going to talk to, and consider them as the main character of the story. The next one is traits, okay? A good story relates to the heart. It's not just about data. It's not just about facts and numbers, okay? Humans connect more to storytelling because it lights up their brain, right? They share the experience with the storyteller, even if it's just data. Let's say this is the numbers right now and boring, right? If you wrap it around a story that your character can relate to, then they'll be able to relate more with that. All right, next. So problems and struggles. So think of it as the villain in this story, right? Every story, this is my favorite Disney villain, by the way. I know it's technically not a villain, but yeah. So every story has a villain or a low point, okay? This is where we identify the ugly part of the story. And this is actually a very important part because this is where we can anchor the new concepts and ideas that we're going to present. So this will speak a lot to your characters. So identifying their pain points, their struggles, right? You want your audience to feel like, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, remember I did been there, done that, right? So I shared with you the problems and struggles that we might have been facing. And I really wanted to get you to that point where you say, yep, I know that feeling. Yep, I've had that same problem. Next, goals and motivations. Okay. But yes, so because goals and motivations very important, we want to highlight the ending that we are aiming for. So think of it again as the story. You have your character, you have what is your character. Characters will be your learners. What are they like? What do they see? What do they feel? What's the trait that they have, right? And then you have your problems. What is the low point of their story or the problem that you're trying to solve? Goals and motivations, this is like, what's the happy ending? You want to tell them, what will be the ideal state? What will be the happy ending for you? After this session, this is going to be who you are, or you're going to save the world, right? After this session. Highlight the ending that you are aiming for, okay? This is their goals and motivations. Where is this story leading to? Where is this all leading to? How will this end? So what are they going to be able to do after this? What do you want them to achieve? Or what are they going to achieve after this session or after this workshop? For example, in my presentation now, you need to learn this because this will really help you in your careers. You're going to be the next, TED speaker, or you're going to be the next best presenter in your company. Right? You're going to be the next Brene Brown. Hopefully, yeah. And the last element is sensory details. Of course, you want to add impact to your story through your visual elements. So remember your look and feel of your presentation, or again, whatever medium you'd like to use. You want it to add to your presentation and not take away from it. You don't want your visuals to be too distracting that they lose focus. So it's like cinematography if we're thinking about stories and movies and cinema, right? It's like the cinematography or the setting. It is great that it's there, but if it's not appropriate, if it's not done well, it can be very distracting and it takes away from the story. Okay, I have a question for you guys. So what's the importance of identifying these elements first before you dive deep into creating your presentation? Why is it important that you know who the characters are, what they're like, what their challenges are, and their motivations? Why is it important? So you would like the concepts, the ideas that you're going to share to land, to connect with them. So if we're not able to identify these elements of our story, then how are we going to be able to address them? Now, it's time to really put together these elements and combine them in a structure, okay? So your story structure is your intro, body, and close. Right? We all know that. We've learned that from a while back, intro, body, close, but how do we really do that? How do we make it more compelling? How do we make it more exciting? So you can actually immediately capture your audience attention in a storytelling way by relating to them with their problems and struggles or their pain points. Okay, you can ask a reflection question like, have you ever experienced this? Have you ever done that? Have you ever made this mistake? Okay, maybe also a fact, or share your personal story. You can also paint a picture. Like, imagine this. You're so great at presenting, blah, 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 blah. But where are we lacking? All right. So painting picture, identifying problems, connecting with their pain point. That's super important because did you know humans are actually natural problem solvers? Okay. When you start off with sharing a story about, say, a struggle, a challenge, or relating the business need, the problem to a story, your audience will immediately think and be eager to find ways to solve it because human beings are natural problem solvers. You'd have to really spend some time to think about your introduction because you will lose your audience right away if at the first 10 minutes, you're just, okay, today we are going to talk about this and that and this and that. Okay, point number one, this. Right? You're going to lose them. So the introduction is the part where you really start with a bang, right? Establish a great connection with your audience. Make them laugh, make them think, make them reflect. So when you're done with your introduction, now it's time to really identify what are we going to put in the body of our presentation, right? How am I going to continue the story? Is it just, the introduction part? We don't want that, right? It's like a series with a really good season 1, and then season 2 and 3 and onwards are not so great, right? We all know some series like that, and you don't want your presentation to be like that. Okay, so creating impactful messages in the body of your presentation is super important. Yeah, Dan said heroes. I know it's pretty sad. So these are the things that I will share with you today. There are many ways to create or craft messages within the body, but I'm going to share my top 3. So the first one is selecting your content. Okay. We go back to the elements of the story. We've identified our characters. We've identified their traits. We've identified their problems and their goals and motivations. From that information, we now look at what content should we put, okay, that will cater to or that will connect with these characters or these participants, okay? So the first thing I would say is include relevant and updated content, okay? When we say relevant, something that they can still see, something that they can still, oh yeah, I know that, right? Obviously, exclude anything outdated. So for example, if you're doing a presentation about, I don't know, fitness gyms or going out, in the Philippines, it's not as updated because we haven't been doing that in a long time. It's a pre-pandemic life, right? So you might want to review because next is to share work-specific content or stories. Okay, I really love this because when you are able to share, let's say, your personal experiences in terms of work, in terms of the thing that your topic, if you're able to share your stories about that topic, your personal experience, they will be, again, firing up their brains into thinking that, yes, there's a connection there. I know that experience. I've had that experience as well. So earlier I shared how I got into corporate training and what I've experienced in doing presentations in the past. And that's super specific to our topic. I don't think it will work if it's unrelated to your day-to-day tasks. For example, I talk about an experience or a story, I don't know, if being in outer space, okay, unless one or two here have been in outer space, and that's great, but like it's not gonna land or people will not connect as much as something that they can feel and experience in their day-to-day lives. You can also do a this and then, so that format. So that's just like a journey, taking them on a journey. So this is what we have, and then this is what we can do so that, right? So you're taking them on a journey. So maybe start with a low point. This is where we're at right now. And then this is what we need to do so that this is what will happen, right? So it's not good to just do content dump. Just, okay, reading or doing facts, doing concepts, or just asking them to do things. Okay, so for example, you're doing a workshop on a skill-based thing, and then you're just telling them, okay, do this, do this, do this, do that, and then you're all good, right? So it's just content talk. You have to establish that connection first. Make it relatable first before you share your content. Okay, so the next tip that I'm going to give for your content is sharing strategies, okay? It's really different in terms of content, right? But to me personally, as a learning and development professional, I believe that when your participants, your learners, your attendees are able to do something right away or apply something right away after attending your session, that will really, really help them in learning, right? Because again, we learn 70%, right, from experience. So within your story, within the delivery of your presentation, what can they do, right? So remember my GIF earlier, save the cheerleader, save the world. So save the world is the ending that we want. And the strategy is to save the cheerleader, right? So what can they do to get there? What are the things that they can start working on to be able to get to the happy ending? Do they have to kiss a frog or something, right? So what can they do to get to that happy ending? What strategies can you give them? Okay, so crafting top tips, ideas, what can they apply right away? So again, taking them on that journey earlier that I shared, comparisons, analogy. What is a present situation? What is the low point? Who is the villain in the story? What is the problem? You share how it could be better. What can they do, right? And then how is it going to be? What is the ending if they apply the concepts or ideas that you are presenting? Okay, and the last one is, of course, just the pizzazz of everything, beautifying your content. So identify the look and feel of your presentation, what fonts or colors you're going to use, videos, audios, photos. Are you going to use those? What's the slide flow? What Canva template are you going to use, right? I know that these are just visual aids, but it's still important because it's 10% of learning. You want them to look at your presentation, your visual presentation, and that will add impact, right? Again, not distract you, not distract the audience or your learners from it. So decide what you want it to look like. Are you going to use black and white? Are you going to use emojis or bullet points? Okay, that will go away. Are you going to use other things? It's important, really, really important to also take some time to craft your slides if you're going to use slides, okay? Or script out your whatever you're going to say. All right, so I'll move on. So those are some of the things that you can use, okay? Again, you have to remember your visual aids, your presentation, your slide deck, your videos, your graphics, they need to add impact to that story. And cinematography, think of it as like cinematography. How would you want them to feel when they see your slides, right? Do you want to invoke some feelings of excitement, maybe a little bit of color? Like I use very colorful slide deck because I wanted to invoke a more laid back, more, informal approach. But if you're presenting to maybe your bosses, corporate people, you're pitching you're doing a sales pitch, then you might want to also theme that to your visual aids. And the last section is, of course, to wrap it up, right? Bring your story to a beautiful close. These 4 things here are my personal favorites, okay? You can do so many things when you end your presentation, but what I like to do, number 1, is to give your story a happy ending. Okay, so spoiler alert, I will practice all of these as I end the presentation just to show you. Okay, so happy ending to your story. So for example, you shared in the beginning, this was my challenge. Can you guys relate? Have you ever experienced this? Yes, yes, yes. Concepts in the body of your presentation, tips and ideas. And then when you end, you want to give that happy ending. So now I've applied those concepts and now look at me. I'm here in front of you doing this presentation or something, right? Or now my metrics, my sales have gone up because I've applied this, right? So show them that that happy ending is possible for them, right? So do that with your own story as well, okay? If you have next steps for them, you can also share that. I also love asking for an aha moment. So just to check what really landed with them, right? So what's your favorite part? What's the aha moment for you? And also sharing a challenge or like a sequel. Think of it as a sequel. So my challenge to you today is this, okay? And I would love to see you guys do that in the next, I don't know, 1 week, right? So kind of like a sequel for the story. Some other things you can do, and with a quote, if you're really into that. I would say though, that ending with a quote, you have to have something after that. You can't just, okay, as I end the presentation, quote, right? You want to add, okay, what's the quote about? What did we want to absorb from that quote? Yeah, challenge, call to action, cliffhanger question, what if this and this, right? So what if, just think about it. If you have applied everything that we've done or talked about here, what if, you're the next big TED speaker, right? And with that, I end my presentation, something like that, right? And again, if you have other learning activities, you can invite them. So just like what I did earlier, I pitched the other learning activities, or if there's a part 2 or a level 2 to that training, you can also promote that. So let's experiment. I'll do it. Okay. How do you want me to end the presentation? There are so many ways. Okay, let's try it with the quote. Okay, I'm actually, in reality, really nearing towards the end of my presentation. So, ending this presentation with a quote. As again, I'd like to share with you this wonderful quote by Robert McKee. And he says, storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world. And I know that we have a lot of ideas, right? We've shared that with everybody in this webinar today. I've heard a lot of your great ideas. I've looked at, the chat box like blowing up like crazy. And let's put that to practice. Let's do storytelling. Let's really put our ideas out there in a beautifully crafted way that your listeners, your learners can relate to, right? And for example, that's how I end it, right? And then thank you. Okay. Let's try. I'm going to end it with a challenge for you guys. So all of these are really well and great. I believe that you guys are ready to craft a kick-ass presentation with storytelling after you've worked on your toolkit, identifying the elements of your story, and then also crafting the structure of your presentation. So what now? What can you do after this presentation or this workshop? Fill out your storytelling toolkit and of course, practice, okay? I'd love for you to practice your presentation. Pick 3 people, friends, family members, force them to listen to you. But yes, have really a dedicated time to practice your presentations in the next week. And definitely you'll see how it helps you a lot. So that's how we end with a challenge, okay? And this is really, for real, something that I would like you guys to do, okay? I'm not just trying it out for the sake, but this is really what I would like you guys, something that I would like you guys to do, okay? So toolkit, practice, pick 3 people to practice with. And what about if I do a happy ending for my story? So you remember how I started in the beginning. I was, this girl who is just a matter of factly all datas and facts, not even giving out jokes in the training room. But now I really did what I could to elevate my skills, to elevate my presentation skills. So again, I looked at videos. I learned how to do storytelling. I got mentors. I practiced. I really was brave to do trial and error, right? And so I was doing now I've been invited to speak in a lot of webinars. I've been in a training industry for 12, 10, 11, I don't know, years, right? And I've been really a facilitator for most of my corporate life. I've also been doing hosting gigs. I've also been speaking, in front of people. And I even founded a podcast with my fiance called Stories After Swipe Right. So that's how much I was able to, love storytelling and talking and presenting. So from that little newbie or fresh graduate who really doesn't know anything about talking to people to really just being comfortable and making a living, earning a living out of presenting and talking to people, right? And of course, now I'm with Canva. I'm a learning designer for Canva. And I also facilitate for workshops. And it's been so great. It's really my favorite thing to do in the world. So if I was like that, really bad, awful in the beginning, hella boring, and I was able to, really earn a living out of presenting, you can also do that, of course. It's something that is doable for all of us. That's our happy ending.
We've got a couple of questions for you, Em. Do you have any tips on English communication skills? Any resources that you use for, I guess, foreign language speakers who don't speak English?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. I just do LinkedIn Learning usually. I also have a couple of, if you're interested in really investing in your English communication skills, so I could have a couple of friends who offer that. So that's also something to look at. Go to, some websites or search on courses. LinkedIn Learning is, one, of course. YouTube as well. If you're looking for a free resource, there are lots of great channels. There's actually a channel called English Pronunciation. I remember I use that as a reference in one of my webinars. So you can also check that out. So again, thank you for taking the time to be with me today and to learn from me. I hope that you guys have learned a lot and that you guys will be excited to apply these tips and tricks in your presentation. Just deliver it with heart. That's my final saying, really. Deliver with heart, know who you're talking to, put your heart and passion into it, and you'll be amazing, you guys.
First of all, I want to say thanks, deliver with heart. You absolutely did, and it's a great tip to end on. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thank you again, Em, and we hope to see you at another Canvas-based webinar.